Welcome to the newsroom of the Chicago Sun-Times in the West Loop. Today, an election post-mortem. Joining me, two experts from the Chicago Sun-Times, City Hall reporter Fran Spielman and Chicago Sun-Times columnist Mark Brown. The subject today, the future of Alderman Ed Burke. We're talking about that because of the stunning defeat Tuesday night of his brother Dan Burke, a state representative. Franny, I want to just tell you, because you have covered the brothers Burke for so long, describe a little bit the enormity of the defeat for Dan Burke, and then what this may mean for his brother, the long-running committeeman and alderman in City Council.
Well, Dan Burke is going to collect two pensions. I don't think you need to cry for him, Argentina, but so he'll be better off financially. But what the real issue here is, what does it mean for Ed Burke? Ed Burke, who just 2 weeks ago was basking in the glow of 50 years in politics and 49 and a half as alderman, and is speaking to the city club and glowing and all that, suddenly his future is in doubt. He carried his own brother in his own 14th ward by 62 votes. I mean, that's astounding.
Right, and just so people know, the 14th ward is the heart of the state representative district. Right, so Mark Brown, what do you think this means in terms of the survival of Ed Burke?
Well, he's definitely on the endangered list. There is a difference between a state rep race and an aldermanic race, and I feel like maybe they didn't entirely take it seriously or get started soon enough, but they're in trouble. Definitely in trouble, and they're going to come at him.
So let's say, and tell people now who the they is, who won. So both Fran Spielman and I interviewed Clem Balanoff, who's the head of the progressive group, the spinoff of the Bernie Sanders campaign called Our Revolution. So Clem said, "We're coming after you, Ed Burke." The winner, the man who defeated Dan Burke, is a product of this progressive movement. So if this group just focuses on Ed Burke, Fran, what do you think it means in terms of just the political lasting power in this changed demographic that Ed Burke exists in?
Well, remember, he's representing a ward that's 80 to 85% Hispanic, and speaking Spanish doesn't save you.
Does he?
When you are representing Donald Trump or have represented Donald Trump and his property tax.
Wait, does Ed? I didn't realize that. Does Ed Burke speak Spanish?
Yes, he does,
Oh.
and his wife bragged about it at the city club. He's adjusted, he's changed, he's learned to speak Spanish. That's not good enough when you are throwing a red flag in the face of your constituents, your predominantly Hispanic constituents, by representing Donald Trump.
How many years has Ed Burke represented the ward? Most of our
49
careers?
and a half.
49 and a half.
And his father
And
before
before
that.
that,
Yeah.
That's my point. So what a dynasty there is on it. So,
But we've left out a name here, Chuy Garcia. It's not Clem Balanoff. Clem Balanoff
Yeah.
is speaking for Chuy Garcia. Chuy Garcia is, he's the new congressional nominee. He is.
who's going to win new 4th District in November?
He's going to replace Louis Gutierrez in Congress. He was behind the Burke opponent.
Right. And they've got their own network, their own thing going.
They successfully elected, a Cook County commissioner to replace Chuy, and I believe they took out Burke's sub-circuit judge the other day too, which is a big sign of weakness.
So let me bring this up because people know Ed Burke, finance chairman, Chicago history.
Head of judicial slate making for the
Yes,
Democratic
but so
Party.
this is where some of his power has come from, and this is a little noticed aspect of what I think is kind of the steamy and seamy side of Chicago politics, that men and women who want to be judged, in order to get the official backing, have had to come and kiss the ring of Ed Burke for decades. I mean, back when I covered the Daily Center, they had to go and, kind of just pass muster with him. He's controlled many judges through it all. But I want to bring up something else with Ed Burke, that he is sitting, I just looked it up before we went on air, at least $9 million in his political funds. Okay, that means, and I gave a quick look to the Dan Burke, he didn't even give $1 million or $2 to his brother, unless some numbers are going to come in on there. He has, just in the last quarter of 2017, for a man who has no opponent, he has no ambition to run for higher office, he has no reason, sometimes people collect money.
No chance of running for higher
Well, no,
office.
but sometimes people collect big political war chests to prevent people from running or to help others. He just doesn't do it. So he collected 300.
Well, he helps others.
But not to the degree of somebody with $9 million.
Sure.
He helps Madigan. He gave, I think, $5,000 here and there to the
He
party
gave a lot of money to Pat Quinn.
Pat Quinn.
a few
huge.
years ago, and it was a lane. But the point is, he still kind of has the chutzpah to collect in the leagues he does. Just the last quarter, 2017, he collected more than some people who have active campaigns said he collected.
And why? Because he's
$386,000.
And the reason is because he's the finance chairman. He presides over all the legislation. He controls everything.
And somehow these people are still giving money even though he has
because
not.
he controls everything. And it's funny because he
Well-
abstains from voting on matters that involve his law clients, people
Yeah.
who he's representing on property tax appeals. But he's busy in the back room negotiating all of the deals.
Right, and
then he
people are paying.
abstains at the last
And then
minute.
he goes and he gets campaign funds from.
Right.
So here's my point. Do you think he has the will to spend? So far he hasn't a real campaign, so he hasn't had to spend money on himself. Franny and then Mark, will he spend money, his political money, of which he has an abundance of, at least $9 million, for his political survival?
He will, but the issue is, will it make a difference? I mean, Ortiz was outspent like 3 or 4 to 1, and he still won. And so in an aldermanic race where he is viewed as Darth Vader, where he's the guy who waved a red flag in the face of his constituents and represented Trump, didn't explain anything. He's the one who's benefiting from the property tax system that Barrios presided over that he lost because of. I don't know that the money is going to make that big of a difference.
Mark,
It's as always, they're going to have to pick a good candidate.
good point.
They're
You
gonna-
can't beat someone with no one.
And if they pick somebody that maybe they haven't backgrounded correctly, or I mean, if they got somebody waiting in the wings, maybe. But unless they've got a candidate, I mean, people are always vulnerable to the negative attack, and there is still a voter base there that homeowners who just don't know.
But one
you can
thing-
scare them.
Okay, so Franny and Mark, if people were doing opposition research on Ed Burke, they would. I mean, I know the papers in Chicago have run stories about some controversial issues he's been involved in since we've been around.
But it would just be a referendum on Burke from that standpoint. People
This one
know all
had
it. You
a-
couldn't tell anybody anything new that they.
No, this one had
That's why you
legs.
could find something new on the next guy.
It had legs. The Trump thing had legs because people are so angry that he has targeted Hispanics. And so it was a sign of disrespect to them that their alderman was making money and put money ahead of them and the respect to them. And so I think if Burke were smart, he would work to find an Hispanic replacement and have a role in anointing his successor. Perhaps even work with Chewy and together bury the hatchet and then find someone who could take over. That way he would play a role in the future
And he
of that
could
board.
sit on his $9 million. Could we explain for a moment to our viewers, when you talk about Trump and the property taxes, I believe you're talking about that Ed Burke's private law firm
Right.
has represented Trump Tower in Chicago
Right.
in its appeals to have their property taxes lowered. And that is what is the heart of the controversy in Trump. So we have seen a Trump factor here. How does he fight it? What does he do? Do you have any ideas, Mark?
He can say, I don't represent him anymore. I
They have
dropped
said
him.
that.
Okay,
Well,
that didn't work though.
Well, they didn't prove it. I mean, they claimed it. Dan Burke claimed that he doesn't represent anymore, but the records still have his name on the stuff, so.
So what do you think?
It's not going to make the past tense go away.
No.
So here's a confluence that's going to happen, that the city council election will happen at the same time as the mayoral election, which is just getting started. It's going to kick off within hours of our conversation, it seems. So Mayor Rahm Emanuel, where will he be on Ed Burke? Mark?
It was interesting. I noticed that's probably true, but I noticed over the weekend, the mayor jumped in to do some sort of school
For Dan, with Dan.
event with Dan.
Right.
Aha.
To come try to, it was a little rescue move, you know.
Yeah.
Dan is, doing
So,
getting you good
so
schools.
under the guise of official business, it happened to be in the district with Dan, even though Ram could then say, I'm just,
Right. And
so it's this phony, it's a
they
phony
do-
coincidence, right?
They do, Fran
Totally
knows this
phony?
stuff better than I. They do seem to work together.
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's very much like the détente, I'll leave you alone, you leave me alone thing that Daley and Burke had also. They did not like each other. They were rivals
Oh,
since
going back,
childhood.
yeah.
Since childhood. But they had a mutual non-aggression pact. You don't mess with my stuff, I don't mess with yours, never the twain shall meet. And with Burke and Emanuel, it's similar. Emanuel started out saying, I'm going to cut his bodyguards, I may depose him as chairman of finance. Lo and behold, no.
Whatever happened to
didn't
that?
happen. It didn't happen. He left him in place. He cut the bodyguards in half. He has retired cops doing it. But what difference does it make? He's still being flyed around town with bodyguards.
Speaking of non-aggression pact, there's another one, Mark, I bet you want to talk to us about.
Yes, I did want to also point out that, a big item in Fran's story about the Burke situation.
Which is
that
which is on the Sun Times, and let me now say, find everything that Fran has written about Burke at suntimes.com. Mark's columns there.
When Ed Burke goes, if Ed Burke leaves the city council, that's a lot more than just losing the 14th ward alderman. This guy, he's the key cog in the city council. And it's just an amazing, even though people keep trying to move him aside, just because of his institutional knowledge, his work, and his he's just diabolical.
Well, also he knows the deals.
He's
he
like
knows
Madigan
secrets.
that way. He knows everything.
So,
he keeps
two
records
things.
like
We're
the
going
old man
to
David.
wind up in a few minutes. So,
Okay, I'm
one, we
sorry.
have to discuss that Ed Burke knows secrets that
Yeah,
in his
J.
finance
Edgar
committee.
Hoover. He is the
So
J.
hold
Edgar
that. I'm going to
Hoover.
let you address that. So we talked about. We need to talk about Mike Madigan, who is the boss of the adjoining 13th ward. He is going to be the bad guy in that Rauner attacks in this governor's race. He's also the state party chairman. So, Mark, what is the Madigan factor in the
Well, I think
future of
that the
Ed
very interesting part here is that this progressive movement to take out Ed Burke, it's got like one blinder on here where, right next door here is Mike Madigan, but Mike Madigan was smart enough to cut a deal with Chewy, helped him a little bit. The 13th ward helped him with Congress. They backed his Cook County Commissioner candidate. They've been making nice for the last few elections, and so they're going to leave Madigan alone and leave his base alone. So he doesn't have to worry about that. He's not going to have the chair kicked out from under him. From his own people.
So they could take him on another time.
Another time.
So
Down the
they're
road.
in charge.
Aim low.
Playing a
Why not?
long game.
Keep your goals within reach.
Right. So as we close, we're in the final minutes here. So Fran, Ed Burke, because he's been around so long and the finance committee he's privy to secrets, is that useful to him for political survival?
Well, he knows where the bodies are buried at City Hall. He has a dossier on everyone. So he can use information that he gets or inside stuff to, use against someone if they dare to go against him. So he has always been able to use that information that he has, and that's part of his unique power. But I think knowing when to leave is a very important thing. And I think the time has come for Ed Burke to at least consider that he might be better off riding off into the sunset, calling it a 50 years, and finding a way to anoint his successor. If not, he's going to spend a ton of money. He'll have to call in every chit he ever had, and he might lose anyway.
Money that he has, $9 million. Well, on the thought of leaving, this is time for us to leave you. Thank you, Mark Brown, Sun-Times columnist, and Fran Spielman, Sun-Times City Hall reporter, two hardworking experts on the staff of the Chicago Sun-Times. I'm Lynn Sweet, the Chicago Sun-Times Washington bureau chief, with your election post-mortem focusing on the future of Alderman Ed Burke.